set of tools in the toolbox on COVID, developing vaccine manufacturing capacity in Africa, where they're importing 99% of vaccines. DFC has just announced a big deal with J&J in South Africa with other international financing bodies. So again, multilateralizing what we do. And that's going to bring more than 500 million doses online coming from South Africa by the end of 2022. I think that's just the beginning. And certainly my impression, and as vice chair of the DFC, my impression is that is very much the orientation of the leadership of DFC to meet these needs in developing countries, recognizing that is going to be profitable for everybody over time.
Thank you. Senator Paul.
Good morning. Are you aware of how much revenue the federal government brings in?
Probably order of magnitude, but not the specific.
It's about $3.8 trillion estimated for this year. Last year, about $3.7 trillion. But we're spending, close to $7 trillion maybe this year, a little over $6 trillion last year. So the deficit was of historic proportions last year, over $3 trillion. It'll be again $3 trillion or more by the time the majority party weighs in. Amidst that massive deficit, do you think that debts matter? Do you think it matters how big a deficit we have?
If I can state to my area of expertise, which is how we spend the money that you're generous enough to appropriate, I'm probably on safer ground. I have my views as a citizen, but I'm here in my capacity as aid administrator.
All right. The thing is that we probably do need people in government who do understand a little bit about finances. I mean, you're asking for a 15% increase in the welfare that we give to other countries. And really, I think it's irresponsible. It's the wrong thing we should be doing. We should be conserving our resources, particularly conserving them for our country as opposed to sending them to other countries. There's not a great deal of evidence that the money that we launder throughout the world really over time has been a benefit to us. There's a great deal of evidence that much of it's been stolen. We mentioned corruption. Well, yeah, there's plenty of corruption, and often the government-to-government money has been stolen through the years. But some of it's spent on things that are just, if the American people knew about them, would be outraged. Some of the aid money went to, spreading green growth in Peru, some sort of climate alarmism, selling Serbian cheese, venture capital fund in Bosnia, small business loans to people who've been deported, dealing with truant Filipino youths. In Afghanistan, we spent $60 million on a hotel that was never completed. It was a shell of a hotel across from our embassy. It became such a danger that our troops had to patrol it, and ultimately will have to be raised if it hasn't been so already. They'll probably need more money to raise it after we gave somebody $60 million. The contractor ran off with the money. The people who want global climate alarmism to spread through both aid and our defense budget built a $45 million natural gas station in Afghanistan. First problem was it was supposed to cost $800,000, and then in the ever lack of efficiency of government, it ended up costing $45 million when initial estimates were $800,000. That was the first problem. The second problem is the average Afghani makes about $800 a year, doesn't have a regular car, much less a car that runs on natural gas. So the thing is that if you look at the history of the welfare that we distribute around the world, you really see a history of both sending it to corrupt nations. If you look at the money sent to the Mubarak family, to Egypt, I think it's $1.5 trillion, $1.5 billion a year, but over like a 30-year period, I think it was 40 some odd billion. Well, Mubarak's kids were each worth about $5 billion. Mubarak himself became worth about $10 billion. And I don't think anybody argues that some of that wasn't getting by taking the cream off the top as our aid came in. But that's the history of it throughout Africa, throughout all of these nations, of people skimming off the top. But it's insulting to Americans. We're running a $3 trillion debt, and it does have ramifications. What we're seeing is inflation throughout the economy right now. It's an insidious tax. It hurts the poor the worst. It's a regressive tax, and we're going to see more of it. But it comes from people who don't seem to have an opinion about debt, who just seem to just go along their way and say, oh, I'm going to help people. I call it the big heart, small brain syndrome. Give everybody money. Give everybody free money. Give the world free money. Because we have a big heart and we want to help people, but we don't see really the ramifications of what the debt's doing to our country, what it'll ultimately do. If you want to see the unraveling of it, look at Venezuela. You know, that's what our future will look like if we consider to not be concerned about debt. So my admonition to you is you should care about the debt and that you should be aware of the debt in coming forward with a budget that asks us to increase by 15% when we'll have a deficit of over $3 trillion this year.
Thank you, Senator. I don't have much time to respond, but I'd be grateful just to say a couple of things. First of all, I've made multiple endeavors to come and see you. I would love to talk about the programs that you have concerns about. I actually think when I had the privilege of serving the Obama administration, there were a number of issues related to assistance to particular governments where you and I had a meeting of the minds, if I recall, unless I'm misremembering. But on the broader sort of view of foreign aid, I just think it's really important to disaggregate what we're talking about and to dig into particular programs. And that's why one of my priorities as administrator is to enhance the rigor of our evaluations, to be accountable, to look at some of the programs maybe on your list. Maybe they should be stopped, or maybe they should never have started, and maybe we can learn from them. But if the pandemic has not taught us how connected the health and safety of Americans is to people who live around the world, I do not know what will. We are connected. And if we do not invest in global health systems internationally, it is going to be the American people that pay the price.
Nobody's arguing we're not connected. It's just whether we have to pay for everything.
Would you? And so you want the Chinese then to pay and to exact their leverage in that manner? You want someone to do it, but we're to be the freeloader on a Chinese-led world order? I'm not for that.
Thank you.